Is that?
Perfect.
Is Chaim David in Shir? Is Chaim David
Yes,
there?
yes, he is.
Am I supposed to turn Ruvain on?
Yes, please, if you could.
Okay, I'll
Thank
go.
you.
Sure, thank you.
His wife's not around for a week. She's in America. She's on the way.
Okay, we're on the bottom of Yud Chesamud Beis. And Hilchos Chol Moed. So here it talks about writing and Chol Moed. The previous mission also was about writing. That's what you are allowed to write. The top of the page says, "Elo Kosman B'Moed." That was yesterday's sugya. Kedushin, Gittin. We said what Kedushin Hashem. Question what it might mean. Lamaskana might mean Shtar Erison, and Gittin, Shavorin, different kind of documents. And this mission is going to talk about what you're not allowed to write. The question is, how about everything else that it doesn't say? It's not an exhaustive list, and it says this you may, this you may not. If it would just say like the other Mishnah, these may take a haircut, these may wash, shakal other masurin. So it means everything's also besides what it says permissible. But here it tells you one Mishnah about mutter, one Mishnah about asa. So what are we supposed to take out of that? What do you do by everything, all the other kinds of writings? So I don't know. Also, the poskim we said that difficulty in Hilchos Chol Moed, that if there are rules, so then they fix each case to fit into the mold. So they'll talk about here, this Mishnah is talking about the Mishnah is to say you are allowed to write is because it's a Tzarech HaMoed or it's a Davra Aved. That's the Tzarech HaMoed with the Ma'aseh Hediot, these kind of cheshbonas, which in the Mishnah doesn't say, and there is a tzad to say that the Mishnahs are individual halachas. We said halachas akuros, and you can't apply them. How come they're to them? It could be the way it looks, if it's business like or not. It's not defined what the heter is, what the isser is, unless you go to poskim that are going to say it goes with the regular halachas of a couple of rules and fit it into the rule, which is quite difficult. So the Mishnah says, "Ein kosvin shtarich b'moed." This Mishnah was quoted earlier that you're not allowed to write a document of a loan, IOU. If you don't trust him, if you want to lend him the money, but you don't trust him without a contract, then you are allowed to. It also says, which the Gemara is difficulty with. The Gemara is not going to talk about it over here. We spoke about it already. That if he doesn't have what to eat, so then it's a heter to write. What does that mean? Who doesn't have what to eat? If it's the one who's borrowing,
because he's hungry.
And if he's not hungry, also you're allowed to lend him money. It has nothing to do with You're allowed to lend money, and if you don't trust him, you're allowed to write a contract. What does it have to do with he doesn't have what to eat? So the Gemara said that's the maskana, that it means the sofer doesn't have what to eat. That even though you would trust him, you'd get the contract after the chag, but since the sofer needs money, so we're allowed to let him do malacha. This was the Gemara before when it said there's a mocha shein l'mayochel, there's also a poel shein l'mayochel, which the Gemara learned out of this, and the Chorah applies to the rest of the Mishnahs also. It's very strange. We don't understand how come the Mishnah only told you over here. This is the case where it tells you that the worker that doesn't have what to eat, you're allowed to hire him even if it's not a tzarech hamoed and it's not a davar aved. But since you want to give the poel, the worker, to be able to get money in order to be able to have what to eat on Yontif, so then you're allowed to. So why does the Dafka say it over here? We don't know. But that's what the Mishnah means. Ein lo mayochal means if the scribe doesn't have what to eat, so the borrower and the lender, they can make a contract. They'll go to him probably after the Yontif, but they're going to come to him during Chol Hamoed because this way he could make money and have what to eat on Yontif.
All kinds of malachas that
The should apply.
Not use.
Right. Since you want to give him
on Chol Hamoed, but if it means you support some kind of uman to make some money,
that's what it seems like.
Your shoes fixed. I don't need to fix my shoes now, but
that's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. I don't know the limitations. Is this going to be a blanket heter whenever you want to give a job to somebody to make money for the yontif? So then you'd be allowed to do any kind of malacha. I don't know. This is the only place where it says it.
Listening to it's really about taking a haircut on Chalamoid.
Right.
So the Rabbeinu Tam that everybody disagrees with. Rabbeinu Tam says that if you took a shave or a haircut before the yontif, then on Chalamoid you could.
Because the whole purpose is in order to come into, and now same as they argue on them. Like it will be the same thing as he only has one garment and he washed it, so then what is it called? So too, if he took a haircut before, he'd be able to take a haircut. Shave. That's what it goes. Yeah.
So Yehuda tries to answer the Rebbeinu Tam, and he got him today. Everybody went crazy on him, and he said the only way you could do that is if you hired a barber that needs money.
Like this kind of heter.
With that heter, then do that.
Then it's okay.
But even with that, people.
Okay. So that's one halacha about writing a loan document. IOU, and now ain't close to another halacha that you're not allowed to write the Chol Moed. Ain't close to the phone tefillin and mezuzahs b'moed. That the sofer cannot write Sefer Torah tefillin and mezuzahs is not allowed to write in the Chol Moed. And also, ain't magir no sachas afilu b'sefer Ezra. Here it says Ezra. Rashi has another gears of Azora. Hey, at the end, it must mean the same thing. It means that there was a Sefer Torah that was very precise, and either because it was written from Ezra or it was in the Azora. That's where they kept it, and that was the classical Sefer Torah or whatever that everybody would use it to know that what the precise wording should be. And even if there's a mistake over there, you're not allowed to fix it on Chol Moed. So what does it say that you're not allowed to write Sform Tefillin and Mezuzahs on Chol Moed, and you can't even correct even one letter? It seems even if it's a Sarach HaMoed, maybe it doesn't say Heter over here, it just says that it's Asar. And even if it's very important Sefer like that Sefer Torah that was considered the most precise, also most accurate is the word. Most accurate is still you cannot correct even one letter.
Wow, that's
So-
unbelievable that you only have one Sefer Torah in shul, and you want to lane with it, and they won't, and on Chol Moed, you can't.
Unless they're going to say that the Mishnah means when it's not a Sarach HaMoed, that's the problem. The Mishnah is where it says you are allowed to, you're not allowed to. It doesn't say what's behind it. Is it a blanket statement or does it mean because here you do need it, here you don't need it, and then you could have means the difficulty is going to be that the Mishnah before says what you are allowed to write. The Mishnah here says but you're not allowed to write. And if you're going to say that it's a certain case, so you could change the cases. The case before could have been a case where you don't need it, then you're not allowed to do it. And this case where you do need it, you are allowed to do it. Then the Mishnah is not telling you anything. It just says cases and figure out that it's talking. So that's difficulty if they're in the Rishonim that they want to say the case is not in the case where you don't need it. Doesn't sound like that. Yes, please.
It means that the stam is an issur more stringent than all other types of umanut, as we mentioned in the beginning of the Mishnah, and all those examples of the different shtarot.
I don't know if it's more than anything else. It says these you're allowed to do, these you're not allowed to do.
One letter.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas the sofer who's writing shtar for somebody,
That's because he's not allowed.
Wouldn't do it on normally.
He's not allowed to do that either. It's only because ain't lo mayochel. Ain't lo mayochel. Maybe ain't lo. I don't know that. Ain't lo mayochel. Maybe it's not much for a sofer also. I don't know the limitations. I don't know that.
It sounds too stringent.
I don't know that. It is strange. The Mishnah only says it.
I'm saying
it is strange that the Mishnah only says it in the case of the Shtar Chov, but if you're saying that it applies to other things also, so then it should apply to this Sefer Torah Tefillin Mezuzahs also. That if you say the Ein Lamayochel is going to be a blanket heter and all Hilchos Chol Moed, Paul doesn't have what to eat, so maybe set around that also. I don't know what to say.
But here there's no mention of it. So.
There's no mention in the Doma Sechta besides here. This is where it talks about it. Ein Lamayochel. It says one time before. It says by the Mochash Ein Lamayochel. The Gemara wanted to know how about a Polish Ein Lamayochel, and it brought this Mishnah, and we learn out that is a Pol also.
It's not before it. It's a deal.
It says Ein Lo Mayochel. It's not a diuk. It says Ein Lo Mayochel is mutter. So we figured out that it means a sofer. So I don't see.
The diuk is that it's a sofer and not.
Okay, that's figured out.
We could touch it different ways.
No, the Gemara doesn't have another pshat. The Gemara doesn't have any other pshat, and the Gemara learns out that this Mishnah means the sofer, this person, this scribe doesn't have what to. He's allowed to write the shtachov, and does it apply to everything else? The Gemara before in Daf Yud Gimel it made a generality. It's Paul Shein Lo Mayochel. Learned that from this Mishnah. So I don't know what to say. That you're going to say that's a sofer from Torah Mezuzahs may not. I would think that yes. I don't know what to say. What is the heter of Paul Shein Lo Mayochel?
Shtarchov is this one thing and a small thing. So writing in Sifrei Kodesh is extremely. It's a real avoidance. I can tell you.
I don't know. I don't know what the limitation of Paul Shein Lo Mayochel. I don't see any limitation. I don't know. The bottom line, if you the Omer Kosovo and Tefillin or Mezuzahs la'atzmo, that there is a heter for a person to write Tefillin and Mezuzahs for himself. If he's not doing it to sell, it's only us if he's selling it. But if he's doing it for himself, then he would be permissible. That's Tefillin and Mezuzahs. You're on the bottom line.
Now he's actually writing.
You're reading the bottom line. Kosovo and Tefillin and Mezuzahs la'atzmo. The Tova la'alibeichot chelas tzitzis also goes into Tova. Now Tova means to spin. We didn't talk about it till now, but here they're saying you're not allowed to spin, you're not allowed to weave, not allowed to do all these things. But a person would be allowed to spin tzitzis for himself, not to sell. Rashi over here, the Mefarish, brings down that before it said in general you're not allowed to take money for anything. That was then by the Avankri and Daf Yud Beis that we said that general halacha and all these halachas, whenever it says you're allowed to do malacha, you can't take money. And here the Mishnah says you're allowed to write without taking money. It means everything we spoke about till now also was always talking about without taking money. And it says this you're allowed to do, this you're not allowed to do. The Mishnah seem pretty difficult if you say that there's regular rules. It doesn't seem like regular rules. There's generalities. It sounds like each thing you have to look at it for itself. But we're stuck, and we just learned that there are regular general rules. And here it says, just reading what it says, that here it says a permission for a person to write tefillin and mezuzahs for himself, and also to make tzitzis for himself, but he wouldn't be allowed to do it for other people.
But that's only Rabbi Yehuda's opinion,
Right.
not the Tanakh.
That's what it seems. Maybe I'm not sure we're going to pass like we are going to pass like it. Then it could be that nobody argues. Could be that even though it sounds like some machlokes, nobody seems to argue. And that's what the Gemara is going to say now. Tanu Rabbanan, Kosevadim Tefillin and Mezuzahs La'atzmo B'Tov Ali Rechet Chelas Tzitziso U'Lacherim B'Tova Divri Rabbi Meir. So here, what we had in the Mishnah of Yehuda, here Rabbi Meir says more or less the same thing, that a person is allowed to write Tefillin and Mezuzahs for himself. He's allowed to spin tchelas or tzitzis for his own tzitzis. For other people, he's allowed to do it for free. It means it's only us that to do it for money. Yerecha means he's doing it on his thigh. I forgot to explain that. When it says in the Mishnah, top line, Toval Yerecha means doing it on his thigh, not the regular way of spinning with a spindle. It's doing with a shinui, that he's going to take the wool and rub it on his thigh. That makes also get spun, but it's a shinui. So that's mutter to do it with a shinui, it seems, and also for himself. Tan Rabbanan, the Tanakh over here says the same thing as Rabbi Yehuda did, but it's in the name of Rabbi Meir. It says he could write tefillin and mezuzahs for himself. He could make tzitzis for himself, or other people without for money, which was what Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah. Here it's Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda's even make more. He could do harama. He could do a loophole that he has for himself. So he sells his own, and no problem to sell it. That's also an interesting point, that he's allowed to sell it, his own tefillin, and now he's allowed to write for himself. Instead of writing for somebody else, he writes for himself and he sells his own. That's also based on the heter of the previous heter, that he's allowed to do it for himself. Now it says he can do harama and sell his own. Now he needs for himself. Might be right that you have to go for himself. So they talk about, the Tosfos talks about all these things that it says he's doing it for himself doesn't mean because he wants to wear it on Chol HaMoed, and that would be a raya maybe that you're supposed to wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed, or it just means that he's doing it for himself. He's using it after the Moed. In the Mishnah here, in the Gemara here, you can't tell that he's wearing it. Tosfos talks about this point. Is it proof from this Gemara that you're supposed to wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed or not? And they talks about other sources where it says in the Yerushalmi. So that comes a machlokes, and we know what the manhagim are. Some do, some don't. And Eretz Yisrael, the minhag is not to wear tefillin. Even the Litaim don't wear the Gra. It says not to. So
strongly against.
I don't know.
You didn't know that?
Rabbi Yossi Omer.
What's interesting is that the beginning of the Mishnah gives you the permission to write from Parnasa. You give him permission to write it, shots, all these shtarot, Davka Parnasa. Here we're saying you can't write for Parnasa. It's an opposite halacha.
I'm not sure. What are you looking
Why?
at?
Because here you're not allowed to write and do a tefillin. You can't weave if it's to sell, but if it's for himself, you can.
Yes.
So there the heter is dafka yes for Parnasa. He needs the money.
Over there, there's something called Ein Lama Yochel. There's that. Someone doesn't have batit, so that's it. This is not a question of Ein Lama
This is
Yochel.
not a desperate situation.
The next situation, the next one, Rabbi Yossi Yom Kosevadim Moichel Kedarki Ketei Parnasasa, does say something Ketei Parnasasa over here. The poskim say that it means, like Rashi over here says, it means Harabracha. Means that's not. It's a bit even more lenient than Ein Lama Yochel. Ein Lama Yochel is a general heter, and here he has batit, but he'll have more Harabracha. He'll have more. So Rabbi Yossi permits that also. He's allowed to even write and sell if he's doing it for Parnasa, which I would have said Kedei Parnasasa means mamish, regular business as usual. But they say Kedei Parnasasa means that'll have extra for Yom Tov. It's a bit of a heter more than before because since it is a mitzvah, tefillin and mezuzahs is a mitzvah, so we'll mount over here more than Ein Lama Yochel. So I had three opinions over here. There's no Tanakh, nobody argues over here. So it seems that everybody agrees that he'd be allowed to do for himself, even though in our mission only says Rabbi Yehuda says so. Maybe Tanakh doesn't argue. Rabbi Yehuda is just explaining. Here you have three opinions. Rabbi Meir says he could do it for himself or for others for free. Rabbi Yehuda says he could do haroma and sell his and write for himself. Rabbi Yossi says that if he's going to do it for harvach, he's doing it for extra money for Yom Tov. That's also a heter to write and sell. Oh, that's the end of the price over here. Orile Rav LeRav Chanan Avami LeRav Bar Chana LeRav Hananel Halacha Kosi V'Morcha Kedarku K'tei Parnasasa. Rav Paskin to Rav Hananel. Rav Hananel was a sofer, and either Rav or Rav Bar Chana, they said to Rav Hananel that you're allowed to write as usual in order to get more money for the Chag. That's called K'tei Parnasasa. The same thing is going to be now more or less the same idea about spinning tzitzis on his thigh. So you need a shinui. So Tan Rabbanan Tov Adam Al Yirecho Tchilas Tzitziso Avalo Be'even. Div Rabbi Lezer says you have to do a big shinui to do it, spinning it on rubbing it on your thigh. That's a big shinui of how to spin tzitzis. and then you're allowed to do it. He's doing it for himself, like he says, it's tzitziso, but he can't use a weight. A weight would be a stone. That would be a way of spinning. Don't even do that. That's also not the regular way. Usually you use a spindle. Look, when you see someone a pelach as a spindle, usually you do that, a professional instrument of how to spin. So he has to do even not a stone. But Chachamim say Bev, and he uses a stone also, but not to use a spindle. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo, Beven Avalo B'Pelach, Chachamim Omer Ben Beven Ben B'Pelach. Rabbi Yehuda has a different gersa, a different nusach of what the machlokus was between Rabbi Elazar and the Chachamim. Again, according to the first version, Rabbi Elazar is very machmer, only on your thigh. The Chachamim Amate, even with a stone. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, everything is a bit lenient. That Rabbi Elazar will hold in Mishmo, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, that he could use a stone, but not a spindle. Chachamim say even a spindle. So the question was, how much of a shinu does he need? We have a couple of opinions, either dafka on his thigh, or even a stone, even a spindle. It means no shinu at all. The proposed can say not to use a spinning wheel, which I don't know if they even had in time to the Gemara. That you don't need a shino, you can even use a spindle. The halacha, then it seems to go back to the Gemara before about writing. Maybe also applies over here also that Tova Kedarko Mocha Kedei Panasasa. I don't know, but the word Kosev is going back. The word Kosev is why?
Where it comes to some not writing on Fulham.
Because they have what they need to yantiv.
But it says Kedarko.
Without a sheet.
Yes, but the last word say Kedei Panasasa means if he needs it, we said Kedei Panasasa means he's doing it for Avach in order to have more money for the yantif. If someone doesn't have money for the yantif, he'd be allowed to. They say Kedei Panasasa doesn't mean that he's just doing it for his Parnasa like the whole year round. It means he's doing it for the Parnasa of yantif. If he doesn't have, then he'd be allowed to do it.
If he wants to buy fancy wine, he only bought regular wine for yantif.
So he'd be allowed to write a mezuzah and sell it and get the money for the extra money. That he'd be allowed to do. So we just finished halachas about writing. We had the Mishnah that said what he's allowed to write, the one Mishnah is not allowed to write. This Mishnah said he cannot write a shtarchov, and he cannot write savam tefillin and mezuzahs. The heter that it says by the shtarchov is sofer shein l'mayochal, and the heter that it says from tefillin and mezuzahs, he can't even do it even osachas. But if he's doing it for himself, he'd be allowed to. And the Gemara is marchiv that not only if he's doing it for himself, also he could do it for money. If he's doing it kedei panasasa, which the post can say means to have tzorcha yontif berevach. And also as far as spinning, not allowed to weave or spin these kind of things, but if he's doing it for tzitzis, he's allowed to. And also does not need a shima, even with a spindle.
I just think I'm thinking over again. It says berevach, it doesn't say higher quality. I mean, let's say you order a kilo of meat for instance. He wants to have a kilo and a half.
It could be that it could be it includes also better quality. Also, I would think so. I would think that's also what it's called. Arvacha means more in order to have extra. Extra doesn't mean more kamod. Yeah, to be large as they call it. They call it here large. Mishnah. HaKoveres Mesa. This goes into Hilchos Avelos concerning Yantif, which really is interesting. I think more brought down a couple of two daf and Nafi Dollar brought down 14 issues about Avelos over there, and it didn't really have. It wasn't really the subject over there. This starts the sugya about Avelos connected to the regal. HaKoveres Mesa Shloshi Yomim Kodem a regal Batlam Menu Gzeir Shiva, and Shmona Batlam Menu Gzeir Shloshim. If somebody buried a relative that he mourns for 3 days before the regal, so he did the main Avelos. There are some halachas that the first day of the regal, some 3 days of the first 3 days of the Bechi, and then 7 days of Shiva. So here it says as long as he passed the first 3 days, then the regal came, then it knocks off the Shiva. As we know that we don't pass like this, we're going to pass in even a few minutes. If he did Avelos, he started the Shiva, also the regal knocks it out. But Amish doesn't say that. Amish says Nafka if it's past 3 days. If it would have been within the first 3 days, then it wouldn't have knocked it off. But if he already passed the first 3 days of Avelos, so then when the regal comes, it knocks off the rest of the Shiva. And Shmona, if he already had 8 days past the morning, means that 7 days of Shiva is over, plus he's even started the 8th day, which is the first day of now the Shloshim started. Not that Shloshim doesn't mean another 30 days. It means 23 more days. So the 8th day means this time this Mishnah holds. We're going to see it today. We'll see it on Amud Beis already that this Mishnah holds only if you finish the 7th day and even the 8th day is already Erev Yontif. So then it's in the Shloshim, and then we say Batlamen Gzeir Shloshim. Then the Shloshim is going to stop. Shloshim is also to take a haircut and also to wash clothing for Shloshim. We'll see more about that. For our purposes, just as a haircut. The haircut is going to be also for during Shloshim. We're not talking about our love of Imo. We're talking about the rest of the relatives. That morning during Shiva, we had the whole list of before 13 things that are also during Shiva. And Shloshim would make that as usher to take a haircut. And here it says that if he had 8 days of mourning before the regel, so then the regel comes and knocks off the Shloshim. We'll see what that means. The point is going to be not that he knocks off the Shloshim, he can take a haircut during the Chol HaMoed. It means it knocks off the Shloshim, he can take a haircut before the regel. Since the Yantif is coming, so it's going to permit whatever would be also during Shiva. Let's say during Shiva, the point would be that it's also to wash during Shiva, so then he'd be allowed to wash before Yantif comes in. And if it's knocking off Shloshim, he'd be allowed to take a haircut before Yantif comes in. There's a difference between Shabbos and the Regalim. Shabbos does not stop the Avelos, but it is Ola, means that it counts for one of the 7 days. That he doesn't have to count 7 days besides Shabbos. He counts 7 days including Shabbos. And it doesn't stop the Avelos. The Avelos continues after Shabbos. But Regalim, it stops the Avelos and it doesn't continue afterwards. It stops it and it's terminated.
Why
And
does it smoke because it's a simcha?
probably has to do with the Simcha, or has to do, does he do any kind of Avelos during the Yontif? By Shabbos he does do Zvarim Shabbatzina.
Why
We'll see.
One is kind of question. Why by Yom Tov we don't do Sinner and Shabbos we do it?
So I don't know if it's true either. We'll get to it. It probably has something to do with Simcha.
I'll wait.
Probably has something to do with Simcha. Ve'ein Olin, it doesn't count. It means it stops it, then it doesn't count. Now, if it stops it, of course, it doesn't count. What does it have to count for? It's over already. Mafsik means that the Avelos is terminated. So what's the purpose of Ein Olin? Ein Olin would mean in a case where it's not Mafsik. In the case where it's not Mafsik, our mission would hold, for instance, that only if he had 3 days. If he didn't have 3 days, then it's not Mafsik. And it also is not going to be Olin. He's going to have to count the whole amount. If he count the 2 days before the regular, he'll have to have another 5 days after the regular. This part is not going to be relative to us because we're not going to pass. He has to have 3 days. That even a minute before is also going to be mafsik. So whenever it's mafsik, it's not going to count. When is it going to? Of course, you don't have to count. There's nothing to count anymore. But Ein Olin would mean that if he buried his relative during the regel, so it wasn't mafsik, but also it's not over. So the whole 7 days is going to start after the regel is over. Shabbos is not mafsik, but it does count. So 7 days including Shabbos, and the regolim, it terminates the Avelos if it started before. Here, Amish knows you have to have 3 days before. We possibly even a minute before. Also, it terminates the Avelos, and there's nothing else to be old anymore. It's finished already. But if it was not mafsik, the case would be that the relative died during the regel, so it doesn't count. It means that he has to do all the Avel all 7 days after the regel. The rest of the mission talks about 1 day Yom Tovim, like Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Is that considered a regel or is it considered a Shabbos? Does it mafsik or not? There's a difference between Shavuos during the Beis Hamikdash and Shavuos when not during the Beis Hamikdash. During the Beis Hamikdash is the 7 days that you let 6 days more besides the Shavuos that you're allowed to be in the Kabbalah. So it's like a 7-day holiday. And then Rabbi Lezer would say that's considered a regel. But after the Beis Hamikdash, so it's only the 1 day. So he says that the 1 day is not considered a regel. It's like Shabbos that is Ola Beina Mafsekes. Rabbi Gamliel says the opposite. Rabbi Gamliel says that a 1-day Chag is considered a regel, even Shavuos Bizman Hazeh. And even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which is less of a regel, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Golim, that even a 1-day Chag, and even not only Shavuos, a 1-day Chag, even Rosh Hashanah is also considered a Chag that is Mabatal Davelos. I don't know like Rabbi Lezer that says it depends if it's 7 days. I don't know like Rabbi Gamliel, who's the other extreme, and says even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is considered a regel. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Shabbos. That Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot is considered a regel. No difference if it's 7 days or if it's 1 day. Atzeres is also considered a regel, but Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur not considered regolim. It's going to be considered Shabbos, that is Ola Veina Mafsekes. So is that good? We have the Mishnah that says that the last part of the Mishnah is very general, that Shabbos does not terminate the Avelos, but it does count for the number 7. Regolim stops it. If it doesn't stop it, then it's not Ola either. It doesn't count. You'll have to do the whole Avelos sub 7 after the regel. And then the Mishnah spoke about the Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah considered a regel or not, and we passed like the Chachamim that Shavuos is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur or not. The beginning of the Mishnah says that's the regel. When does it terminate the Shiv or the Shloshim? So the Mishnah holds that if you had 3 days before the morning, so then the regel is going to terminate the rest of the Shiva. And if you had 8 days before, you had 8 days of mourning before the regel, then the regel is going to terminate the Shloshim. We'll see that we're going to argue on some points. Amirav, Gezeras Batlu, Yamim Lo Batlu. So if you look at the Mishnah, it says let's say the end of the Mishnah where it says Shmona, the second half of the Mishnah. This word here, this word Gezerah Shloshim. Shmona Votlemenu Gezerah Shloshim. What does that mean? That if he had 8 days before, it stops the decree of Shloshim. So the decree of Shloshim, what does it mean, the decree of Shloshim? Surely the Mishnah is going to mean that he's allowed to take a haircut before the regel, since he has already 8 days middle of Shloshim, and now the regel is coming. The simcha of the regel is make way for the regel. The regel is coming, so the halachas of mourning are waived because the regel is coming, and therefore it'd be allowed to take a haircut before the regel starts. The question is, does it stop the Shloshim even besides permitting him to take a haircut before the regel? Does it stop the Shloshim? And the nafkamina would be, is he allowed to take a haircut after the regel? That's the sugi over here. Amarav, Gezeras Batlu, Yomim Lo Batlu. The days are still there. The days of Shloshim are not over. The days of Shloshim are still there. The Gezeras Batlu means that we allow him to take a haircut before the regel. L'chvod the Yantif, that's all the Yantif does, is that it allows him to override the mourning in order to honor the Yantif. That's the only purpose. That's all that overrides. That now he's allowed to take a haircut for Erev Yom Tov, but it doesn't stop the Shloshim. So therefore, as the Gemara is going to explain, that he would not be allowed to take a haircut after the Yom Tov. Ravuna also agrees to Rav that it's only had to take a haircut before the Yom Tov. It doesn't stop the Shloshim. Rav Sheshes holds, he argues in Rav and says that the whole Shloshim is over. Not only is it permission to take a haircut before the Yom Tov, it's even stops the Shloshim completely, and he'd be allowed to take a haircut after the Shloshim. My time of Yomim Labatu. What does it mean when we say Yomim Labatu? What do these words mean? It's going back to Rav. The whole issue we're talking about, Yomim Batu, Yomim Labatu. What does it mean? What does it mean, Yomim Labatu? Shem Logi Lacher Regel, also Lagalech Achar Regel. That it's not over. Shloshim is not over. It's only a permission to take a haircut before the Yantif. But if he didn't take a haircut, that doesn't mean he's not taking a haircut. That doesn't mean Shloshim is over. And if he didn't take a haircut, he can't take a haircut after the Chag. If you say that, like Rav Sheshes, Yomim Batlu, that means that Shloshim was over. Not only in order to permit him to take a haircut before the regel, the Shloshim was over. And even if he wants to take a haircut after the regel, he may. Of course, he should have taken it before in order to honor the regel. But if he didn't, the Shloshim was over. But Rav and Rav Huna, they say that it's not stopping the Shloshim. It's just saying that the regel overrides the Shloshim and he's allowed to take a haircut on honor of the regel. But if he didn't, so he slash Shloshim. That's machlokis. Talmud Bey says that this thing is going to be machlokis Tanoam, but Tanya means that I'll bring you a proof. But here it's not saying a proof to any one side. It's bringing a proof to both sides, which is going to mean that the Bryce here is going to bring both opinions. That's why we had Rav and Rav Sheshes. Here it's going to be a Tanakama and Abba Shol. Hakobes Mesa Shlosh Yamim Kodem Leregel Batla Menu Gzera Shiva Shmona Yamim Kodem Leregel Batla Menu Gzera Shloshim. So far, it's word for word the Mishnah that if he buried his relative 3 days before the regel, so then when the regel comes, it stops the Shiva, and that'll mean he's allowed to wash before the regel comes. That's what it means. That that just like on the during Shiva, he's not allowed to wash, but before the regel, if he already finished the 3 days, so then the regel is going to be mevatel the Shiva, and he'd be allowed to wash before the regel comes. And Shmona Yamim Kodem the regel, so then he's already in Shloshim, and it stops the Shloshim. And here the Brisa goes a little further. Umagalech Erev regel, he's allowed to take a haircut in honor of the regel. It's already is in Shloshim, and not only when the regel comes does it stop the Shloshim, it allows him to take a haircut for the regel. That's the whole purpose. That regel is coming. So what do? You don't go into the regel with the long hair. He's supposed to take a haircut before the regel. What if he didn't? This is not much the case we talked about. In Logi Lacharev regel. So Tanakama says that the Shloshim is still on. It just permitted him to take a haircut before. But if he didn't, so then it's not permission to take a haircut afterwards. I would say just a little bit more, that even if he did take a haircut, also he can't take a haircut after the regel, because it's not only a knas that he didn't take a haircut, he can't take a haircut. The Shloshim is still on. It only permits him to take a haircut before the regel, on honor of the regel, but it doesn't permit him to do that the Shloshim is over. The Shloshim is not over. But Abba Shalom, regel, like Rav Shesha said, that it stops completely. It stops completely. But now he brings a proof to himself. He seems to bring a proof on the beginning of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said 2 dinim. If you go back to the Mishnah, it said 2 halachas. One was about Shiva, that 3 days, Batla Menu Gzera Shiva, and then it was about Shmona, it's Batla Menu Gzera Shloshim. And he says that everybody would agree, the words of the Gemara seem to say that everybody agrees that when it's batal gzera shiva, it's mamish batal. That is that not only the gzera is batal. Here he says that everything is batal, and even if he would not have utilized any heter before, it's mutter after the regel. That there's no shiva, the shiva is over completely. And he says if that's true by shiva, so it's also true by shloshim, that the shloshim is not over completely. It isn't so clear how come everybody agrees in the ratio, but that's what the Gemara seems to say. Taisa talks about it, that in the ratio everybody agrees that the whole thing is over. The shiva is over, and even if he didn't utilize the heter, he didn't wash before, he would be allowed to wash after. And therefore he says, Kishem, Shekishem. Shekishem mitzvah shloshim mevateles zera shiva completely. So too mitzvah shiva mevateles zera shloshim completely. Even if he did not utilize that before, he's mutter to take haircut afterwards. And we're going to pass like Abba Shol. We'll see soon. We pass like Abba Shol that shloshim is batal lagamri. Not only that it permits him to take haircut before, it's over completely. And even if he didn't utilize that l'chvod the regel, after the regel is no more shloshim. The next sugya is sort of in parentheses. It's a chashuv sugya. It might even be more of a main sugya than we did till now. But the sugya is going to be what we mentioned yesterday about mixas yom kikulo, which is very, very nogeya. I mean, on the seventh day, is the oval allowed to get up in the morning? That's the custom of mixas yom kikulo. Once he started the seventh day, so then he can start shiva and also shloshim. So that's a sugya. It's not so simple, even though that's halacha. Here it's where it starts. But the Gemara is going to be medayik over here. Is the difference in terminology, between the Tanna Kamma and Abba Shol. Here it says shmona. Here it says the word shmona. Maybe let's highlight this a second, just to show the difference. Get pink over here, let's say. Here it says shmona. Tanna Kamma, when he wanted to say how to be mevatel shloshim, he said that if he had 8 days before the regel, same as the Mishnah, then he knocks off shloshim. When Abba Shol was recounting the Mishnah, he used the word shiva. Doesn't let me do that, but you got it over here. That kishem mitzvah shloshim mevatel shiva, kach mitzvah shiva mevatel shloshim. Here it said shmona is mevatel shiva, and here it says shiva is mevatel shloshim. Did I say it wrong? Here it says shmona is mevatel shloshim. Here it says shiva is mevatel shloshim. How many days before the regel do you need in order to be mevatel shloshim?
Now it says shmona.
So the Mishnah said shmona, Tanna Kamma here said shmona, and here Abba Shol said shiva. And that's opening up a new sugya. We're going to go back to the main sugya again. I mean, to the general sugya. We had so far machlokes between Avsheshet, Tanna Kamma and Avsheshet, which is also the machlokes. The main machlokes in this brisa between the Tanna Kamma and Abba Shol is if the shloshim is knocked off completely, whatever it's going to be, shiva, shmon, whatever it is. When shloshim is knocked over, does that mean that it's only heter in order to honor the yontif? But it's not that it's over after the yontif it still is on again, or it knocks it off completely. That's the main machlokes. But in their talking, when they mentioned the heter of knocking off shloshim, Tanna Kamma said 8 days before, and Abba Shol said 7 days before. That's the Gemara's kasha. Shiva, it jumps on Abba Shol. Like, what are you saying, Shiva? This word Shiva, shbanan shmona tanan. The Mishnah said shmona. Tanna Kamma said shmona. Where did Abba Shol get that Shiva is enough to knock off shloshim? The answer is because Abba Shol means yom kikulo. That's the yesod that he holds, the principle that he holds of, that part of the day is considered the whole day. And therefore, on the seventh day in the morning, as soon as it started the seventh morning, it's already Shiva's over. And the rest of the day is into Shloshim already. So when the Chag comes, even if he had 7 days, he's ready into the Shloshim. Tanna Kamma holds, you don't say makes Yom Kikulo, so the Shloshim didn't start until on the 8th day. On the 7th day, the whole 7th day is still Shiva. Yom Hashvi, according to Abba Shol, since the mix Yom Kikulo, so the 7th day counts both for Shiva and for Shloshim, because it's the end of Shiva is in the morning, as soon as it started in the morning, if he did a little bit Shiva, and then the rest of the day is already just Tocha Shloshim. So therefore, when the Chag comes, it knocks it off. So that's a machlokes.
Why shmona?
Because it's one after Shiva. The whole 7th day is still Shiva.
Right. It's only Shiva.
I'm not following.
It's Shiva, not shmona.
When does the Shloshim start?
When does the shloshim start? After the Shiva is over.
When is the Shiva over?
Oh, on the seventh day in the morning.
That's only Abba Shol. Tanna Kamma says nothing. The Abba Shol says 7th day in the morning, and therefore, if you have the 7 days before the Chag, so that the rest of the day of the 7th is already Shloshim, is already started on the dinim of Shloshim, and therefore Yontif knocks it off. Make way for the Yontif. Yontif is coming, and he's allowed to take a haircut before. But according to Tanna Kamma, Shiva is not over till the end of the day. So if he has 7 days before the Chag, so then the Shloshim didn't start yet. So this is a machlokes. When does the Shiva over? Is the Shiva over in the morning, right away, Yom Kikulo, or is only over after the end of the day? Rav Chisda Ravina Bashil Alocha Kabashol. The halacha is like Kabashol that mixes Yom Kikula, and therefore Shiva is over in the morning, and the Shloshim started. Umodim Chachamim Labashol Kishachol Shmini Shalo Lios B'Shabbos every regular. We had this yesterday, but the Gemara there was quoting Agamor. Agamor is really the source. What if the 8th day fell out on Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov? Everybody gets the case over here. We had a machlokes if say mixes Yom Kikulo, is he allowed? Does the Shloshim start on the 7th day or not? Here it says, what if the 8th day fell out on Shabbos, which is Erev Yom Tov? What would you say? According to Abba Shaul, the Yom Tov surely knocks off because the 7th day was enough. He doesn't need the 8th day. Even the 7th day, if the Yom Tov, he could surely take a haircut because mixed Yom Kikulo and the Yom Tov is coming, he could take a haircut. But according to Rabbanan, the whole 7th day is still Shiva. So here, if the whole 7th day was Shiva, and then was the 8th day was Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov. What did you say? You say you can't. Why? Because you don't say mixed Yom Kikulo. So it's not the Ninsar Shloshim yet. But here it says a Chiddush. That's what the Gemara is coming to say a Chiddush. That the Chachamim moed in this case, Shemutar l'galech Erev Shabbos. That he's allowed to. Why is that? Here we are, for some reason, here we are going to say mixed Yom Kikulo. I don't know why. Here we are going to say mixed Yom Kikulo. Because why? Because we have, I don't know. I don't know why it's more mutter over here. Why do you say mixed Yom Kikulo? It also, we're going to only be matim to take a haircut on the 7th day. Since Shabbos is going to be the 8th day, he won't be able to take a haircut then. So therefore, he's even mutter to take it on the 7th day, and he's saying mixed Yom Kikulo. I don't understand that, but that's what the Gemara says. The Chachamim would be moed. The Gemara says, "Kiman Azla Hada Amar Rav Amar Mamar Rav Ovel Chivin Shamdu Menachem Me'esla Mutter Berachitza." Let's maybe highlight that. There's something be nice to highlight. Ovel Chivan She'amdu Menachem Me'esla Mutter Berachitza. The Ovel on the 7th day, once the Menachem, the people who came to comfort him, they got up. He's mutter to wash. Why is that? Because makes the Yom Kikulo, Kiman Kabashol, because on the 7th day, once the Menachem leave, so that even though it's still the 7th day, he's allowed to wash because the Shiva is over. Amr Abai Locha Kabashol b'Yom Shiva. He passes like Kabashol on the 7th day, makes the Yom Kikulo, that once he started the 7th day, it's over. Even according to Rabbanan, that don't say mix Yom Kikulo on the 7th day, but on the Yom Shloshim, the Shloshim is over in the morning already. That there they do say mix Yom Kikulo. I don't understand the logic. When do you say, when don't you say? But that's what seems to be in Machlokas over here. Abba Shaul says you even say it on Shiva. The Rabbanan don't agree, but on Shloshim they do say it. The Gemara said also, in an emergency case, when the 8th day is Shabbos, he won't be able to take a haircut on the 8th day of Yom Tov. They also mix Yom Kikulo even by Shiva. And here it says that one moed also by Shloshim. That what Shloshim means taking a haircut. When is Avad allowed to take a haircut? Does he have to wait till the 31st day? So the Chorah should be Machlokas Rabbanan and Abba Shaul if it's say mix Yom Kikulo. And here the Gemara says everybody agrees. The Rabbanan also agree with Shloshim that he say mix Yom Kikulo. The morning of the 30th, it's over, and then he can take a haircut. That was Zu Abai said that. Halacha Abba Shaul by on the 7th, and even the Rabbanan will be moed by Shloshim that mixes Yom Kikulo. That was Abai. Rav Amar Halacha Abba Shaul b'Yom Shloshim. He says, first of all, that they're arguing both by Shloshim also. By Shloshim, the Rabbanan would also say you have to wait the whole 30th day, but they were going to be making like Abba Shaul. But by Shiva, we're not going to make it like Abba Shaul, and it's us to
have a haircut or after the same.
Now, haircut's us for Shloshim. Washing is us during Shiva, and the haircut is us for Shloshim. So when you talk about Shloshim, it says that Shloshim, he's allowed to take a haircut after he did a little bit of the 30th day, and then the rest of the 30th day is already
cooler by him, according to
yes. And he says that one would argue over there. Abai says over there even the Rabbanan would permit it. He says no, the Rabbanan would argue, but he passed like Abba Shaul that is mutter. But ain't halacha Abba Shaul b'Yom Shiva that will machmir by Shiva like the Rabbanan that he can't he can't wash one just because the 7th day started. He has to wait till the end of the 7th day. That they are arguing both by Shiva and by Shloshim, but he passes always like Abba Shaul. He said mix Yom Kikulo both by Shiva and also by Shloshim. We always go with the lenient opinion by Avelos is Rabbanan, and therefore we'll make by any al machlokes like the one who's more lenient, and therefore even if the Rabbanan would argue by Shiva, and they do argue by Shiva, we're going to make it like Abu Shol. And that's the halacha. The halacha is mixed Yom Kikulo, Bein B'Shiva, Bein B'Shloshim. Maybe the Abai said maybe even they're one and agree by Shloshim also. But surely we're going to pass by Shloshim mixed Yom Kikulo, and even by Shiva also mixes Yom Kikulo. That was more or less a parenthesis, but it's probably more relevant. And I guess both of them are. But the first halacha, the main machlokus was we said that is it only a heter to utilize the heter before the yantif, that he can take a haircut before the yantif, or is it even for after the yantif also? So there we pass also like Abba Shol. Tosha says that both points we're going to pass like Abba Shol. One is that even if he didn't utilize the heter before the yantif, it's mevatel l'shloshim, and he's allowed to take a haircut afterwards. No difference if he utilized it or not. And the other machlokis, which is the like a more relevant machlokis, is that mixes Yom Kikulo. Even on Shiva, we paskin that once the oval started the day, like it says here, once the Menachem and leave, then he's allowed to wash the Shivas over. And Shloshim surely. Once the morning of the Shloshim came, he's allowed to take a haircut. The Gemara asks on the first wide line, Shloshim Yom and Olan. Where's the source for Shloshim? It's probably for sure Rabbanan, because it's a asmachta, because the whole halacha not take a haircut is only Rabbanan. But the Gemara is an asmachta to learn out the din of Shloshim, that the oval should not take a haircut for 30 days. Yala Pera Minozim, we learn out Gzera Shava from Pera.
There's 30 days. Is that what you're saying?
What does Pera mean? Pera means where it talks about Aaron, that it says that by the Shmini Limiluim, that Hashem said, don't be Avelim, even though not the Avihu died, but Aaron and then Elazar Yisama should not do Tifro.
Is that only Kohen Gadol or even Kohen?
Over there it's talking about the Yom Shmini Limiluim, Parsha Shmini, and it says over there that Hashem told Aaron, Elazar and Isamar that they should not do Avelis because they're doing the Miluim. It's not a din of the Kohen Gadol over there, it's a din of the Miluim. Yala Pera Minozik. Sifach over here by the Shmini Limiluim, it says Vashechem al Tifro. Don't let your hair grow long, because I don't want you to do Avelis. But you don't do Avelis because you're doing the Chanukah Mishkan. So don't do Avelis. So it says the word Tifro. By a Nazir, it says that he should let his hair grow long. How long is that over there? What does the word pera mean over there? 30 days. What's like a Nazir? What's the minimum time that's called a Nazir that he lets his hair grow long? 30 days worth. He has to be a Nazir minimum 30 days. So here too, what it says that don't act like an oval of Tifro. That means that the oval is supposed to let his hair grow long for 30 days. Hasam and how do you know by Nazir that the din is 30 days? That if a person doesn't say how long he wants to be a Nazir, it's 30 days. If he says more, he can say more. He can say many years if he wants to. But if he doesn't say the minimum is 30 days, my time, my kra, kadosh yeh, gadel parasar rosho. Over there it says he should be holy. It should be holy. His hair should grow long. And it says the word yeh. Yeh is gematria 30. Yud is 10. Hey is 5. So Yud is going to be 30. Yud yeh gematria tlos and habu. That's a remez. I think it's only a smachta. What?
26.
Yudke. Yihya. We're not saying Yudke Vavke. Kadosh Yihya. Kadosh Yihya. That's the pasuk.
Yud Hey.
Yud Hey.
Yud Hey.
2 times you.
It's got no. Okay, it's too small. Kadosh Yihya. So the Yihya is gematria 30. And that's the remez.
Why you want to say that the Naziris is like ovens? He wants to purify himself.
It with nothing to do with that. We want to know what the word para means. What does para means to grow his hair long? How long is that? It says by Nazir he should grow his hair long. It says by Velos they also let the hair grow long, and Aaron should not.
He should not.
But it says the word para. It has the word para. What does para mean? If I know that the word para means 30 days worth, so also by the oval it means 30 days worth. It doesn't mean that a Nazir is an oval, but it says he has to let his hair grow long, and he has to let his hair grow long. So how long is that? 30 days. We said in order to knock off Shiva, it has to be 3 days of mourning. Again, we're not going to pass like that. We're going to see later, we're not going to pass like this. But our Mishnah says that he has to have 3 days of mourning in order to be able to knock off the Shiva. So here the question is, do you say mix Yom Kikulo on the Shlishi, on the 3rd day of Avelos, that there's a din that it's going to knock off it's going to knock off the Shiva. So we would say that if you say Mixed Yom Kikulo, then he'd be allowed to also wash, which means the halachas of Shiva would be before the regal comes in. But here it says, no, he's not allowed to wash on the day. On that day, you're not going to say Mixed Yom Kikulo. The whole day he has to not wash. And at night, once it's already Yom Tov, then he'd be allowed to wash. On that Yeshua is the one who said this, that on the third day, he's not allowed to wash until at night. Once it's already 3 days before the Yom Tov, so then only Yom Tov at night, then he'd be allowed to wash. You don't say Mixed Yom Kikulo, and they pass like that. And the rest of the line just says a different name for the same point. If here it said Rav Nechemia Beid Rav Yeshua, maybe that's a different girsa, or maybe it's a mistake in the girsa over here. But he says Ashkachtin or Papi or Papa Lavuni Beid Rav Yeshua. The Asik Kamri Hakal Modem Shebchol Shlishi Shel Aliyah Ever Regal Chaser Bechitza Aderet. It's the same halacha as before. And Lavuni Beid Rav Yeshua said it in the first girsa. Lavuni Beid Rav Yeshua said it, and Papi and Papa said that that's the halacha. And here in this other version, so all three of them, Rav Papi, Rav Papa, and Avunah Beid Rav Yeshua said the same thing, and Rav Nechemia Beid Rav Yosef was quoting it. But there's no difference, I think, otherwise, just the name of who said it. What is the point being said? That you don't say Mixed Yom Kikulo on the third day. He's not allowed to wash until Yom Tov comes in. I think it's not going to be relevant to halacha because I think maybe we'll see. But I think that we hold that a little bit of shiva is already enough to knock off the Shiva. Maybe also I was going to say there's not a lot of wash until Yom Tov comes in. Not that he can wash before the Yom Tov. We'll have to wait till we get to that Gemara later on.
So why do you put the parentheses? Because it's already, we already read it?
Yes, I'm just saying that it says the same thing before, just different names about the same thing. We're going to stop here today. That's the end of the sugya. Just to chazer over the highlights of what we learned today. The first halacha was about writing on Chol HaMoed. We had yesterday the mission about what you are allowed to write. Here it says what you're not allowed to write. It says two things. One is a shtar chov, and one is from tefillin and mezuzahs. And the first thing it says is a heter about the sofer that doesn't have what to eat, or enam amino, he won't give him the loan if he's not going to get a contract. Also, that is mutter. And even if he does trust him, but the sofer doesn't have what to eat, he'd be allowed to make the contract for the sake of the sofer. The second thing was about writing from tefillin and mezuzahs. It's also even one letter, even in Sefer Azara, Sefer Ezra. But the reader says that it is mutter to do it for himself, tefillin mezuzahs la'atzmo, and also to make tzitzis for himself. And that more continues that even a Rambam is mutter, and even more than that, he's allowed to write if normally, and also maybe also to tchelas for himself, tzitzis for himself.
Just not
as long kedei parnasasa, which means the poskim say it means he's doing it in order to have a revach, more money for the yontif. As far as being toveh, the Mishnah says either shinu al yirecho, but the Brisa brings down more lenient opinions, and it comes out we pass that even be'evan, even be'pelach, he uses a regular spindle, and again he's doing it for himself. He's not doing it for others. He's not doing it for money. The Mishnah then talks about knocking off shiva, knocking off shloshim, and it says in our Mishnah he has to have had 3 days of the regular in order to knock off shiva. He has to have 8 days. In order to knock off shloshim, on Mishnah you don't say mixes yom kikulo. The Gemara brings down that Rabbi Shalom says mixes yom kikulo, and even shiva alone 7 days before would be enough to knock off shloshim because the shiva is over in the morning of the 7th day, and the rest of the day is already started shloshim, and then when the yom tov comes, it knocks off the shloshim. And the main point of the Mishnah would be that therefore he's allowed to take a haircut before the regal. And the Gemara talks about if he didn't, would it be also permission to take a haircut after the regal because the shiva is not the shloshim is knocked off. We'll get to that in a minute. The Gemara spoke about, the Mishnah says about Shabbos is not mafsik, but it does count for the 7 days. Regolim is mafsik, and even if it's not mafsik, it's not going to be ola if he was buried during the regal, so the shiva doesn't start until after the yontif. Machlok is what the din of a 1-day yontif is, like Atzeres, Rosh Hashanah, and there are three opinions. We pass on like the Chachamim that say that Shavuos is considered a regal, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not. Only like Shabbos that it's Ola ve'ena mafsik. The Gemara machlokes if Rav and Sheshes, which comes out to be a machlokes Tanoam, Tanakam, and Abishol, if the shloshim is over completely, and not only permission to take a haircut before the regal, it even takes the shloshim off the gamri, and after the regal he's also allowed to take a haircut. He passed like Abishol that mutar l'galech achar regal, he would be permissible too. Agav, the Brisa uses the word shiva. That's the one word which changes the whole world over here. That Abishol holds Misyam Kikulo, even on shiva. And the Gemara's issue if you pass like that or not. Comes out we do pass like him halacha kedira mekel be'evo, and even as far as shiva, also mixes yom kikulo, and sholi shloshim mixes yom kikulo, and he'd be allowed to take a haircut once he did a little bit shloshim in the morning. He didn't take a haircut right away by sunrise. Both by shiva and even by shiva. Also, that's why it says that once the menachem leave, now the custom is that the menachem also help him to get up. They menachem a little bit, and then he sits on the floor. He did a little bit of veilus of the shiva in the morning, and then he's allowed already. He's finished. He's finished with the shiva, and then he's only shloshim. That's already customs that we don't know what they are exactly. But the issue of shiva is over once he did a little bit. Mixes yom kikula.
I have a content question. Well, why is Rosh Hashanah not considered a regal?
It's not a regal. We understand that it's not a regal.
When I came to Rosh Hashanah after my father passed away, he passed away at Rosh Hashanah. On Shabbos, there was a Kafchet Elul on the Rosh Hashanah. And the Rabbi told me, Nevin Shlita told me to sit for that half day, that Thursday night and half of Friday.
So it seems we're going to.
knocked off Shiva.
So maybe I made a mistake when I said the halachas like the Chachamim.
And then I knocked off Shloshim.
So I see I made a mistake. I said if it passed like the Chachamim, it could be that it's not clear, not so. It could be that it's going to be even like Rabbi Gamliel. I see a hay and a vav over here, so I made a mistake. I was looking at the vav, I didn't notice the hay. So it could be that you're right, that maybe we're going to pass like Rabbi Gamliel, that even Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur also considered regalim. So I forgot. Thank you for reminding me about that. I don't know. So we'll keep off the halach until we get there. And the end of the sugya spoke about how do you know shloshim from Gzer Shava to Nazir, which you see para is 30 days because of the word yiyah. That's gematria 30. And the Gemara ended off. The last thing was that everybody holds that you don't say mix yom kipulo on the third day, and it wouldn't be mutter to wash even if he had 3 days before the Avela, before the Yontif came. He wouldn't be allowed to wash before Yontif came. He has to wait till Yontif at night to be able to wash. Okay, Yashikach, everybody.
To bathe himself.
Yes.
You have to keep that extra day.
Yashikach, thank you. Thank you, everybody.